All right, good afternoon. Welcome back. Welcome back. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Okay, I want to start. By the way, we're in the middle of the chapter called The Human Image. And if anyone else has this edition, what page are you on?
63.
63, white edition right here. In the off-white edition, page 86. And then I know there's an orange edition some people use. No one has that today. Okay. All right, so just to summarize, basically this chapter comes to explain maybe what the Talmud says best, the definition of the human image. And that is that Talmud says that we are half angels, every human being. Divide every human being into two. We would find a half angel and we would find a half ape. Maybe that's where Darwin got it from, the Talmud. But what the Talmud is trying to say is that there are these two forces inside each and every one of us. On the one hand, we can be like angels, we can be elevated, we can be spiritual, we can be soulful. On the other hand, we can also be very materialistic, very impulsive, just like apes. It's not that we're evil, apes are not evil, but we can fall into this instant gratification, into these impulsions that can make us really a little bad. So we have this constant fight within us. It's a constant battle. I don't think anyone ever wins this battle until our very last breath. We'll be fighting this battle as human beings. And I think at every moment of the day, we have the decision to make. Are we going to act angelically, or are we going to act apely, or whatever that English word is? So what are we going to do? It's interesting to note, but I will say this, that actually Elie Wiesel points this out. Elie Wiesel has a book of memoirs called All the Rivers Run to the Sea. That's chapter 1. And that's book 1 and book 2. Maybe you should use it for the book club. And book 2, it's great memoirs, really. And book 2 is, and the sea is never full. It's actually a verse from Ecclesiastes. All the rivers run to the sea and the sea is never full. So his first book is All the Rivers Run to the Sea. Book number 2 is And the sea is never full. But he makes an observation in that book of how the Jewish people are compared to the stars in the heavens. God very often tells Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our forefathers, that their descendants will be as numerous as the stars of the heavens, right? Remember that? But they're also compared to the dust of the earth, kechol hayam, or like the grains of sand in the sea, on the beaches. And Elie Wiesel makes this observation that it's really our choice. We can be like stars, or like angels. We can climb high and elevate ourselves to the highest of highs. Or, God also says, you can be the lowest of lows. You can be lows. You can be like the sand on earth, like the sand on those beaches. It depends on us. And I think, like I said, every moment of the day, we have this choice to make. Are we going to go shoot for the stars? Are we going to shoot so low to be like the dust of the earth or like apes? But this chapter comes to speak of this really in a battle that we each have, each and every day, and somehow tries to gives us the tools, or at least the perspective on how to channel those inside forces so that we can always shoot for the stars and be as angelic as could be. So by virtue of this free will that guides, again, our decisions of being like apes or being like angels, Rabbi Steinsaltz continues, and the ability to impose his will. Does anyone want to read this little paragraph here? Middle of page 86. Right. And this is putting man now, and that's what Rabbi Steinsaltz also is doing here. He's putting man not just in the context of himself, which again, if we're just focusing on ourselves, then we'll find just those two forces. But he's putting man also in the context of the world. After all, we live in this world. Now, if we are putting man in the context of the world, we'll find that there are so many more forces that also tend to try and control man. It's not just the ape versus the angel in me, but it's also what society wants me to do. It's also maybe what my education has almost forced me to do, or not forced me to do. So many other forces, right? Maybe my biological forces also that need to be taken into account. So there's the environment of the world that somehow has influence on us. Now, what's interesting, and that's the point he made about the world in general, is that, if you remember, but in a very mystical way, this world is the fourth of the four worlds that Kabbalah speaks about. You remember that? So we have the highest world called the world of emanation, Olam Atzilut. The second highest is Olam Abriya, which is the world of creation. The third highest is Olam Hayetzira, which is the world of formation. And the lowest world is this world right here, which is called Olam Asiyah, which means the world of action. Now, this world is considered to be the lowest world because it's the world also where goodness is mostly concealed. In other worlds, the goodness is much more revealed. In the world of formation, it's almost entirely revealed. In the world of creation, of a world of emanation, there is no doubt that God is in control. There is no doubt that divinity fills all. There is no doubt that goodness is the only real reality, because everything is revealed then. In this world, there is doubt. We in fact, most of the goodness, most of the godliness that is found in this world is concealed. Now it's up to man to reveal this goodness in the world, to reveal this divinity. By the way, not to create it, but to only reveal it. There's a big difference between the two, and we can go in that direction if you want. But I just want to stick to the point and get to what Rabbi Steinsaltz is really saying here. And that is that we have to reveal the goodness in this world. And in a way, this mission of us revealing this goodness in this world, by the way, through action, not just through thought, but most importantly through action. That's why it's called the world of action. Each time we do a mitzvah, each time we give tzedakah, which uses again a coin that is very materialistic, but we are using it to do kindness, to do a mitzvah, then we are revealing godliness in that coin, in that action. So through action we can reveal goodness in this world. Each time we do that, we're actually fulfilling the purpose for which we were created. Everyone has their action to do. Everyone has a moment that only they can fulfill or savor. Everyone has an action that only they can do, depending, of course, on the circumstances we find ourselves in. But again, if we plant man in this context, in the context not just of the forces that he has within, but on the forces that he has without, and the forces that speak to his purpose, then we'll also be able to, in a way, become much more angelic, not just for ourselves, but for the world. The world can be, in a way, a tool for us to become angelic. What Rabbi Steinsaltz is really saying here is, I think, what educators should tell their students, to put it, maybe to simplify this notion, and that is that, yes, you have this fight within you between apes and angels, but you should also know that the world is here to help you. The world is not against you. The world is here to help you. The world doesn't mean like maybe your environment, your atmosphere maybe is not. But the world of action, the goodness that there is in this world, if you're able to connect to it, will help you reveal your own inner angel. And it's there to help you because it's waiting for you to partner with it. Partner with the world. And by doing that action in the world, then you'll be revealing your own inner angel. I think it also, it relieves a lot of pressure if we speak like that to our children, if we speak like that to students, that they're not alone in this battle. God created a world for them in order to reveal their inner angel. It's not just up to them. It's up to their ability to interact with the world in a good way. And the more they interact with the world in a good way, the more they'll be able to in a way, reveal their own personal angels. I don't know if anyone's a sports fan here, but I'm a soccer fan. So if someone is gifted as a sportsman, I don't know if you want to use soccer, you can use baseball, you can use basketball, fine, soccer. So if God gave someone the gift of playing soccer, God gave someone that talent, then God says, you know what, I'm going to help you even more to fulfill that talent, for you to become a star. I gave you a talent, I'm going to give you a good team. Some teams, you'll never be able to shine. So I'm going to give you a team where you'll be able to shine. Then I'm going to give you the best stadium for you to play in. Then I'm going to give you a bunch of fans that are just going to grow your image. The man just has to come, show up, and play. He has all of the pieces of the puzzle there waiting for him. And this is in a way what Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying here. Yes, we have this battle. We have to overcome the ape within us. But God is helping us do that. How so? By giving us the talent of the angel, but also by saying, you know what? I'm putting you in a world, I'm putting you in that stadium that is the best stadium for you. I'm putting in an environment that is the best environment for you. Just show up and play. And this is really what Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying again in a very simple way. The world is not against us. It's for us. God put us in this world, whichever part of the world we may find ourselves, or in that moment, or in that place, or with that person, because God believes that that is the best stadium for us soccer players. And He puts us there. Now we just have to show up and play. And the minute we show up and play, then the angel within us will be revealed. And that's really what this world is about. It's not against us. It's really a supporting cast to our inner angel. Yes. Now I will say this. I'm going to connect this because if we're already speaking about soccer, but you should know the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, has a whole talk about soccer. He dedicated it once to the World Cup soccer that was taking place, I think, in 1990. He speaks about what we can learn in life from soccer, but I think, again, it's connected very much to this human image found in the world that Rabbi Steinsaltz is speaking about. Because for the soccer game to actually be a game, number one, it needs an opposing team. You can't just go when the field has no opposing team and score a goal. It doesn't count. You actually need a game. You need an opposing team to have a game. Same with life. For your game, your personal creation to count, you need a position. A position is not bad. You overcoming the opposition and scoring a goal in spite of that opposition is what makes your game a game. It's what makes life meaningful. It's what allows you to really connect to your angelic side, to elevate yourself. And that's number one. Number two, Lubavitcher Rebbe had many aspects of the soccer game, but how do you play soccer? You play it mainly with your feet. You're not allowed to touch the ball with your hands. And the reason for that is because that teaches us in a way how to play the game of life. It's mainly, like we said, with actions. Actions will define us at the end of the day. Not the way we felt, not our emotions, not how depressed we were. I've yet have to go to a funeral, by the way, and I've said this many times. Fortunately, as a rabbi, I go to many funerals, where people spoke of the person's mood. They speak about your actions, how kind you were, how good you were to people, how actually you took yourself in charge to do good deeds. That's what defines us most. So that's symbolized in the soccer game by playing the game with our feet, to be like foot soldiers, so to speak, in soccer. And number three, we have this was Lubavitcher Rebbe's main point, speaking about soccer, which again speaks of the context here. But we have the ability to really impact the entire world with our ability to show up and play, to overcome opposition, and to play with our feet, to focus on action. How do we learn that from soccer? From the ball itself. The soccer ball is round, and so is the world. And each time we kick the ball, each time we do a mitzvah, we're actually impacting the globe. The soccer ball represented by the globe. And the ultimate goal is that the more people are involved, like you were saying, the more we pass the ball, the more we create this ripple effect of mitzvahs so that everyone can kick the ball, the more it will lead the ball to its eventual goal, to the goalie, right, to the actual net. And that is when Mashiach will come, when that ball, the globe, will find itself in God's net again and be surrounded by divinity. But that was the third point he made about soccer, which again speaks of the idea here that Rabbi Steinsaltz is presenting, that we're not alone in this battle between the ape and the angel. We're not alone. God puts the stage for us. He creates everything for us to be successful. He even creates the opposition. And therefore, when we face challenges, we shouldn't be frustrated by them or depressed by them, because they are there in order to really press the best in us or enable that best in us to really shine. Eventually, we can overcome that opposition. We can kick the ball, the globe, in the best way we can only kick it. And that will lead eventually to the ultimate redemption. But that's the idea of the soccer game. Even the most bitter adversary is not an enemy. Maybe not to us. I'm saying maybe it's an enemy to the goodness in the world, to the good forces in the world. But when we face it, we have to see it as a way to better ourselves. It's there in order for us to jump to the next level. I think my father shared this with some of you, and that he says it to me all the time. Growing up, I heard it from him maybe 1,000 times, but he's an aeronautical engineer. And he says that the only way a plane can fly is if it has opposing winds. That's the only way a plane can fly. So if you want to fly, don't worry about the position. No matter what type of a position it is. It's there really to help you fly. The more we grow, the least the opposition is going to attack us. We're wrong. The more we grow, the greater the problems are, or the greater the opposition. Rabbi Steinsaltz speaks about this also in this book, in the chapter Holiness that we studied. Remember, we used Jerusalem as an example. Jerusalem is the holiest city in the world, but it's also the most contested city in the world. And on the spiritual level, it's because it's the holiest city in the world. When there's so much holiness, there's so many forces that try to oppose it. And it's true for individuals too, for human beings. The holier we are, the greater we are, the greater the opposition to our holiness, whether it comes in the shape of spiritual challenges or maybe even very physical ones. There's a statement in the Talmud, in the tractate of Sukkah, that says, Kol hagadol mechavero yitzro gadol himeno. Whoever is greater than his fellow, so his evil inclination greater. So if you're more righteous, it doesn't mean you have less of an evil inclination. The opposite. You have even more of an evil inclination. Because the evil inclination can't stand your righteousness. It will try to fight it even more. Imagine a boxing ring. That the more fierce you are with your opponent, the more fierce he'll be towards you. He doesn't want to lose the fight. Same it is with the evil inclination. That's why, I'm reminded of the Rashi that speaks of Jacob, our forefather, who had a very tough life. Just imagine, for many years in his life, his brother wanted to kill him. For 21 years of his life, he was tricked time and time again in the most personal way. He was promised a wife, and that wife, right, he was promised Rachel, and she was changed with Leah. And then he had to work for Rachel 7 more years, and he lived in the house of his father-in-law. He was a complete crook. And then finally he comes out of his house, and he faces his brother who still wants to kill him, and they're able to somehow reconcile. But then he moves on, and then he has his sons, Shimon and Levi, murdering a whole city. Just imagine as a father how you feel. His wife dies along the way. His beloved wife dies along the way. Rachel. He has a very, very horrible life. Finally, he comes to Vayeshev Yaakov Beersheva, to Beersheva. Vayeshev Yaakov Be'eretz Megurei Aviv. Sorry, not in Beersheva, but it is Beersheva. He wants to settle there. And then Joseph, his own son, his beloved son, is kidnapped by his brothers. And he doesn't see the son that he loves the most for 22 years. Remember that story. But Rashi points out that Vayeshev Yaakov, when he comes to Beersheva towards the end of his life, Vayeshev Yaakov, it's not a description of the story of Vayeshev Yaakov means Jacob settled. It's rather a description of his desire. Jacob was so tired with life that Vayeshev, he asked God, please, let me just dwell here. Let me just settle down. Please, let me just live in peace for the rest of my life. I've suffered enough. That's really what the description is. Bikesh Yaakov leishev b'shalva, as Rashi says. Vayeshev Yaakov, and Jacob settled was really his own personal desire. Please let me settle. Bikesh Yaakov leishev, let me settle in serenity, b'shalva. And then God said to him, the Midrash says, you want to settle down? You're righteous. And the righteous, ein lahem menucha lo ba'olam hazeh velo ba'olam haba. The righteous have no rest, not in this world, and not in the world to come. What happens thereafter? The story of Joseph. Joseph is kidnapped. Does he ever rest, Jacob? No. He's probably not resting up there. He's fighting on our behalf too. He's not resting. The righteous have no rest, not in this world, and not in the world to come. It's in a way very sad, but I think also it's indicative of what we're saying here, that the holier you are, the more opposing forces you have. But the holier you are, you also accept upon yourself the idea that you don't live life for yourself, and therefore you don't live life to eventually rest. It's never about you and your rest. It's about living life in order to be God's channel in this world, in order to fulfill what He wants from you. Now, if God believes in you, why should He allow you to rest? He'll allow other people to rest, people that He doesn't believe in. That they don't have to work for God because they've messed up too many times. But if you are not resting, it's a sign that God is believing in you. It's a sign that says, I have a good soldier here. Let me use him to the best of my ability. And he certainly says so for the righteous. And therefore, they have no rest, not in this world, not in the world to come, because God can count on them as being ultimate channel in this world. If we are not resting, not emotionally, not spiritually, not physically, it's usually because God believes in us. And He therefore sends challenges for us to not just refine ourselves through them, but refine the world. He believes in our power to be His agent, even in those darkest of times. I will say this again, Rabbi Steinsaltz. I remember I was in Atlanta and I was working very hard on a seminar that I was preparing for months. And only one person showed up after working for months preparing it. And I was quite upset. And I spoke to Rabbi Steinsaltz about it. And he said something that has stayed with me ever since. He said, look, you were appointed to work, not to reap the fruits of your work. You were appointed to work. If you reap the fruits, good for you, but not everyone reaps the fruits. You have to accept the fact that you have to do God's work. It's not about you. Reaping the fruits is a bonus. Sometimes you'll reap the fruits, sometimes you won't. Not about the results. In our society, we're so performance and result-oriented that if we don't have results, if we don't reach that destination where, now we can rest and enjoy, then we feel like failures. But that's not at all the way God thinks. God wants us to work. Maybe we'll see those fruits, maybe we won't. It could be depressing, right, to think about that. But in a way, I think it's also very elevating, very relieving, in a way, very, very, very holy. Because by doing so, we are accepting ourselves to partner with God and to be His agents. What greater blessing is there to be God's agent in this world, to partner with divinity, to become holy by partnering with holiness. I don't think there's any greater blessing than that. And by the way, and it's also not saying that we don't have, if we are really partnering with God, no doubt there are fruits being created everywhere. We might not see it. We also have to have that faith that we won't see it, but the fruits are there. There's no doubt. When you do God's work, it makes an impact, no matter what. I'll share with you a story. I know you want to say a point, but I shared it on Shabbat. I was very moved by it because I'm friendly with the congressman here, not too far, but he pulled me aside. I had a conversation with him last week, and he pulled me aside. We were speaking in this forum, and then he pulled me aside. He said, I have to tell you something very privately. And that is that my wife was once married to a Palestinian who hated Jews, and it had a deep impact on her perspective on Jews. And I'm very pro-Jewish, very pro-Israel. This congressman is indeed very pro-Jewish and pro-Israel. But it always created this tension in our marriage. And then she was exposed. We invited him here, and I invited him to our home, etc. And then she was exposed to you and to the congregation. And just by the exposure, she started changing a view on Jews and on Israel. And now he tells me she's like the biggest. She's more pro-Israel than me. She's more pro-Jewish than me. Now I'm thinking to myself, wow. I interacted with this man, fine, okay, whatever. We had, common goals to achieve. But I never thought of the impact this could have on things that are way beyond my imagination and my control. But you see, sometimes when you have to do what you have to do, when you fulfill your purpose, no matter what, it creates this impact that you can't even see. I think that's the deeper meaning of Rabbi Steinsaltz's words. You were appointed to work, not to reap the fruits of your work, because sometimes those fruits just cannot be seen. God will sometimes give you a glimpse into them, but we have to believe that they are there. No, it's true, and one really never knows. Just before we move on, maybe one more story. I just read it this past Shabbat. I was very moved by it, but I knew the man, a very special man, Rabbi Schwartz. He was known as Schwartzy. He was the rabbi of UCLA for a very long time, a Chabad rabbi, who was known for his incredible enthusiasm and joy and happiness and contagious charisma. But Schwartzy, by the way, there's a book out on this man about him and about so many stories that you can buy on Amazon. It's called I Love When That Happens. That was his like most used sentence. I love when that happens. That's what the book is called. But anyway, a story just came out about Schwartzy. Because in 1981, he was at UCLA and he tried to organize, we just celebrated Purim, so he tried to organize a group of Jews to get together and to listen to the Megillah. And it's the story of Purim. And no one showed up except for one professor. And he said to the professor, thank you for coming. Let me read the Megillah for you, which is about a 25-minute ordeal. Very quickly, the professor realized, gosh, this is going to take 25 minutes. I only came for 5 minutes. I have to go back home to Irvine, about an hour away from there. And so he tells Schwartzy, I can't stay. I'm sorry. Schwartzy says, why? He says, I have to go home to Irvine. He says, I also have to go to Irvine. Can I get a ride with you? And the professor says, fine, no problem. Anyway, he's in the car. Then he tells the professor, well, it's an hour ride. If we're already here together, let me take out my Megillah, read it for you. And he read the Megillah for Schwartzy. Schwartzy for this professor for during the ride. They get to Irvine. The professor says to Schwartzy, where do you need to go to? He says, just drop me off at the bus station. He says, what, you mean? You came all the way here to read the Megillah for me? He says, yeah, I have to catch a bus back to LA. Anyway, it's a nice story, and that's where you think it ended. Fast forward to 2018. Schwartzy died in 2017. 2018, Rabbi Moshe Schwartz, who's the son of the Schwartzy, he's a rabbi in Boston, and he happens to visit a yeshiva in New York, and there's a 20-year-old man who comes to him and says to him, is your name Rabbi Schwartz? He said, yes. Are you by any chance related to Schwartzy from California? He says, yes, I'm his son. He says to him, I have to tell you a story. You won't believe what happened. He said, what? He said, look, I come from a very, very, very secular family, and I went to Birthright, and there I got inspired to go and study in a yeshiva before continuing on to college. And my parents were very against it. No way. There's no way you're going to learn in a yeshiva. And I stood my grounds, and they said, you know what, let's involve Grandpa. He's a professor at university. We'll have this family intervention. We'll ask his advice. What does he say? They sit down in this family meeting, and the grandpa says to his grandsons, I hear you want to go to yeshiva. Is that true? He said, yes, please, let me go. The professor says, what yeshiva? He said, it's a Hasidic yeshiva. He said, you have my blessing, you can go. And the parents are stunned. They brought the grandpa to be on their side. They stunned. And they said, but Grandpa, what happened to you? He said, let me tell you a story that happened years ago. And he tells the story of how Schwartzy entered his car and read the Megillah for him. He says, when I saw that man, Schwartzy, who came from a yeshiva with those relentless values of just doing a favor to do a favor to another Jew, to read a Megillah, when I saw those values, I said, I'd like my grandchildren to go to yeshiva also. So, you see, you never know. You could have said, all right, it was nice, Schwartzy, took a ride with him, and he really didn't need the ride, and he did the Megillah, fine, but nothing came out of it. It influenced, like you were saying, generations. Third generation, two generations after him now, guy wants to go to yeshiva and enhance his connection with Judaism. How did that happen? Because of one selfless act that Schwartzy did just to do. Did he get any fruits from it? No. Did he see his fruits? No, he died in 2017. He saw it from heaven, I'm sure. But he didn't do it for the fruits. He did it for the work. And when we act as God's agents like that, then there's no doubt that we are creating an impact that's way beyond our imagination. Anyhow, so that's going back to this point that everything in this world is really here for us, for our ability to unveil this angel. It's not against us. Even those things that we think are against are not against us. Okay, bottom of 86. Right, okay, so this, every line here can be really dissected. But the big idea here is connected also to what he said in the previous page. And that is, so again, we have the four worlds. Now, the reason why there is the goodness here is concealed is not because God is found less in this world. God is found just as much in this world as he is found in the upper world. This God is the same God, but he just decides to conceal himself. So I would use the analogy that's used in Hasidic thought a lot, the analogy of a teacher who walks into a classroom. If it's an authoritative teacher, and I'm sure you've experienced teachers like that in your own schools growing up, we've each had a share of teachers who were very authoritative. When they walked in the classroom, we could have been playing a game. We could have been fighting with each other, the classmates together. But the minute, the second the teacher walked, everyone stood still. Let's go back to our desks and behave. She didn't even say a word. The teacher didn't say a word. He didn't say a word. But still, just the authority of the teacher, made us changed our behavior almost instantly. In a way, that's the way God is in the upper worlds. God walks into those upper worlds, and the upper worlds understand there's a teacher in the room. There's God. And that God, that space of God, that authority of God, fills the room. Now, the teacher himself can decide to lessen his authority. The teacher can say he can start playing with the kids. I don't know how, but they have methods to lessen the authority. The more they lessen the authority, the more the chaos might reign again in the room, right? It's not that the teacher has changed. The teacher remains the same human being. It's just that his authority or her authority is less. Same here in this world. God is the same God. But in this world, he allows for chaos to reign by concealing that authority, concealing that presence of his. Now, our duty in this world is to remind our classmates, hey, this is the teacher. He's the one that should fill this room. And our duty in this world is not just to remind those classmates, but in a way to revive the authority of the teacher, revive the light of the teacher. Authority is not a good word for God, because God is not about authority, but to revive the light that is filled by the light of the teacher. That's what happens in this world. So the God is the same God. It's just that he decided, for whatever reason, to conceal that authority or that light. And it's up to us to reveal his light again. This is really what this is saying. Now, in a way, I think that, therefore, this world, if I may say, is really on a higher level than the highest of worlds. Because in this world, if you go back to the analogy of the teacher, in this world, the child can really partner with the teacher. In upper worlds, right, just like going back to the analogy, in upper worlds, there's a teacher and the student has no say. So the student has to be like a soldier, has to almost be robotic. The child, has to be almost robotic. In this world, the teacher wants you, is concealed his authority for the purpose of you coming to join hands with him. So in a way, in this world, we have much greater opportunities, much higher opportunities than we can ever have in the upper worlds. Here we can actually partner with God. And therefore, in essence, we are on a higher level than in upper worlds. And it's therefore a great privilege that does not exist in the upper worlds. So this is really what Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying here. But the main idea is that God is the same God. Ein od milvado, as the Torah teaches in Deuteronomy. There is nothing but his existence. And sometimes it's concealed, but it's up to us now to reveal it and to say to the world, hey, you think you're in a jungle? No. There's a God in the room. There's his light that must fill it. That's right. It's true. This dichotomy exists not just in the words. I mean, not just in that instance, but I think in every instance, right? And it's up to us to, in a way, reveal the holiness in the letters or in the words or in every channel, right? And so God gives us tools to do that. I'm just reminded of Socrates, who was once asked, what is the purpose of philosophy in the world, of philosophers themselves? And he replied famously that philosophers have to be gadflies of society. Like a gadfly. Sometimes you want to fall asleep at night, and then you have a fly that buzzes in your ear, and you can't fall asleep. Same here. Philosophers have to remind the world that, hey, you can't just fall asleep in your own little bubble. You can't just sink into laziness or whatever it may be, apathy. There's a purpose you have to achieve. There's things that you have to think about. So in a way, I think it becomes our purpose. Those people who really recognize the presence of God in this world, becomes our purpose to say to people that we are the gadflies of society too. Bzz. To go to them and awake them from their sleep and say, hey, excuse me, there's a God here. You can't just do whatever you want. A mission for each and every one of us to fulfill. There are rules that are there to elevate us. And it's not a jungle. We have to be gadflies. Because I think if there's one line that can summarize our prayers, our daily prayers 3 times a day, it's this line. say to God, can you reveal yourself just a little bit more? That's what prayer is. There's the author of the Tanya is mentioned by Rabbi Steinsaltz. Rabbi Steinsaltz is a commentary on the Tanya too, and that's what we do every Sunday morning at 7:15. We study the Tanya, but he had to raise his grandchildren because they were orphaned at a young age, so they were raised by the grandparent, and he would take his grandson, who later became a Hasidic Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, to the park to play with kids from time to time. And one day he took him to the park, and after an hour, he found his grandson, Tzemach Tzedek, Menachem Mendel. He found him hiding, but he was crying in his hiding place. So he went up to him and says, "What's wrong?" And Menachem Mendel later became a great Rebbe. He said, "Look, I was playing hide and seek with my friends, and it was my turn to hide. But I hid so well that they stopped looking for me." And his grandfather said to him, "Now you know how God feels. Playing hide and seek with us, and sometimes he hides so well that we stop looking for him." If he would reveal himself too much, then we become robots, then we become angels. Yeah, then it's too clear, and then we miss the purpose of life. And everyone has to contribute their own, has to ignite their own light, so to speak. And then you have a dance of lights that really create a change. Right, that's right. So Rabbi Steinsaltz's answer was divided into two. And maybe I'll conclude with that because I know time is up. But so I only shared with you the second part of the answer that you were pointed to work. It was a woman that showed up. And this was a workshop on family purity, on Taharat HaMishpacha. But only one woman showed up. So I shared that with Rabbi Steinsaltz's first part of the answer is what you're reminding me of. And he replied like this. He became very serious, and he said, "Let me ask you, Penny, how many mothers did Moses have?" Just one, and she created a Moses. And Moses came and changed the world. So sometimes, one person, maybe she's the mother of the future Moses, or her Moses herself. You never know. Very good. Okay, thank you so much. Let's schedule for 2 weeks. Perfect, March 25th. Thank you.